Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I am Tracy Cram Perkins and our show today is Dementia Home Care. I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio. I am a 4-time dementia caregiving survivor and the author of Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. And joining me today is our guest, Laurette Klier, founder of Nana's Books, who is revolutionizing cognitive care through curated reading materials that promote dignity and autonomy. Her innovative resources address critical gaps in care settings, fostering meaningful engagement and intergenerational connection. She holds an undergraduate degree and a master's degree from Boston University. Klier is also an Aetna Fellow for the National Writing Project. Her expertise in cognitive, habilitative, and spiritual stimulation therapies fuel her mission to develop accessible and person-centered materials. Klier has also Her work has garnered 3 National Mature Media Awards, the 2021 M.ED Award for Innovative Alzheimer's Care, and the 2023 Society of Certified Seniors Award for Service to Seniors. And through Nana's Books and Mindful Libraries, she demonstrates how thoughtfully designed resources enhance lives and advance person-centered care. Welcome, Lori.
Tracy, thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you on the show today. We've been talking about this for quite a while, and I am totally jazzed you are here today. For the people that do not know who you are, would you please share with us your caregiving journey and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my caregiving journey began in around 2017. My mother-in-law, Mary, was living in Massachusetts, was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, and initially was aging in place after a few sentinel events that were causing the family concern. She had taken a few falls, ended up in the ER, had some scrapes with the car. She ended up going into an assisted living very near her home, and that's where the journey began.
And how did you get involved in it?
So we were living and are living in Connecticut. So we were about 2 hours away. And my daughter Ingrid at the time was about a middle schooler. Now she's a rising senior in college. My husband and I and our daughter Ingrid, the whole family would go as well, but we would go visit with her. And we were discovering as time went by that she was more and more despondent and having a harder time communicating. So we were endeavoring to give her that moment and give her the opportunity and the tools she needed to better communicate with us. And that's kind of how Nana's Books was born. I was a former teacher, and I was creating literacy environments. Professionally, that was my job in urban and priority schools throughout Connecticut. And prior to that, I was a first grade teacher. So I was constantly taking people with this high intellect and their skills, their current skill level wasn't meeting their intellect. So I was creating scaffolds with just right books, the Goldilocks books. So not too hard, not too easy, but really high interest and self-selected texts. So I thought, why can't I do this for my mother-in-law? So I started to create some books that had to do with her history, her past. And my first book was a poetry book for her with art. She loved that. And then my second book, which was a giant hit with her, and it started the whole series was a book of Irish wit and wisdom that had to do with her Southie neighborhood in Boston that she grew up in. And she talked at length about her shenanigans as a teen in Southie. So again, that's kind of how Nana's book series was born. And ever since, it's been every book, 47 in the series, every book has been by request from a care partner or a person living with dementia themselves. And our books and my colleagues' materials, which I'll talk about in a minute, are for everyone. It is not about dementia. It is about life review. And no matter where you are in life, reflection is always a good thing.
Okay, I love that because all of us have life review moments at some point in our life, and having that connection is so important to have something that you can actually just relate to and just look at the pictures and enjoy it and reminisce. I mean, it's just a fun way of crossing that generational bridge, also being able to share some of the things that would have not normally come up with somebody that may be younger than you, a younger family member, or your children, your grandchildren, however that works. Well, and I'm very, very excited that you do that. So, can you tell me more about Nana's books? How do you distribute them? How do people buy them from you? And a little bit about the history of them.
Sure. So you can get the books on Amazon. I'm very conscious about making the books available, very readily available, gently priced for anybody to buy at any time. So they're available on Amazon. It's not a gated program. I do with my colleagues and independently, I do sell to long-term care, adult day, hospice, palliative care, you name it, pastoral care services. So to a variety of different settings. And then people can take them in with them. And I've also got a digital library as well. So we've got the print, the modality that people that are, let's say 70 plus really enjoy because that's a modality that they're very familiar with. Post-COVID, however, we really leaned into a digital library so that people can have these remote visits that are really meaningful, and they've got that catalyst for conversation. So it really removes that lift and that additional stress. This is a friend of mine here who is a speech and language pathologist, and she's out in LA there with her aunt who is living with dementia, and they just love to share the haiku book. And Paula Signora in the picture, she also shares that book and others with her clients in her speech and language pathology business here in my general, she's here on the Connecticut shoreline. And these are other pictures of people in Pomfret and enjoying the books at the different libraries here in Connecticut. And that's just a little bit more granular information about the books themselves on my website.
Oh, that's just really, really cool. I just admire you so much for the work that you have done because these are just marvelous books. I did take a peek at some of them online, and you have shown me many pictures of and the way they are put together. And I love the fact that the books are so tactile. They have such a good feel to them that when you're holding it in your hand, they're not too glossy. They're very easy to look at, and the photographs are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. How did you end up? I mean, what brought that for you? I mean, how did you come up with this?
So that picture, those images, that gives me a good way to discuss this. So as you can see, these are minimal text books here, the very least amount of text that I'd have in a book. Those pictures of mother and child, this is a book of fine art, mother and child. And the good thing about that is that you can juxtapose the two images and have that conversation. And it really is organic. It comes from whatever the person living with dementia or the care partner is inclined to discuss. And there's no pressure. It's not a matter of an inquisition or asking a dozen questions. You can make declarative statements. You can reflect on something that's important to you. So if you're a person that's experiencing expressive language challenges or word finding, and it's really challenging for you to have a conversation, these images, and that's just one example, really help scaffold that conversation and give people the means with which to reminisce and to go to their strength, which is their long-term memory, because a lot of times working memory and short-term memory really are impacted greatly. So to go to long-term memory where people are put back into their strength, they recall their visit with you and they know that they found success and they were happy and they had a good time. And that is job one.
I just love that so much. Because I know how hard it was for me trying to connect with my own family members. And if I would have known, well, I don't know if your books were available back then, but if I would have known that something like that existed, it would have made it much easier to just be able to start a conversation and just to be able to look at something and get recovered memories. Because that's the other thing is you miss that after they're gone. It's like, I wish I would have asked this question. And your books tend to offer that in and of themselves just because they activate that longer term memory and it pulls forward stuff that you might not normally access. And I just was and we're curious about how your mother-in-law guided you to what she would want in the book and why she connected so much with the second book.
I think that, so to your point about, reaching back, I think that this has to do with legacy and building legacy. So it's taking those opportunities to have those conversations. As one person had said to me, these are, spur conversations of a lifetime. And I thought, wow, that's the highest compliment, that's the highest praise that I feel that any of us can be given, is the fact that we're in transition, all of us. And I think that to give somebody who has been, let's say, marginalized or set aside because they are now struggling with a cognitive challenge. So let's say my mother-in-law, for example, she'd like to play bridge. That was something that was no longer happening for her. So the books are meant to give people a tool with which to share. And to your question about my mother-in-law, she really was a late life person in that she raised 6 children. She was really finally in the empty nest phase, I would say, once my father-in-law passed, because he lived, I believe, with dementia as well toward the end, and he was bipolar. So for many years, she was doing a lot of caregiving. And, she used to joke that he was her 7th child. The man was an absolute delight, but I didn't live with him. Yeah. So she was really, honestly and truly, boots on the ground and providing great care for him. And I think that when he passed, she started to lean into things that she enjoyed for her. So a lot of that had to do with her large print fiction. And she loved her daily newspaper, the Boston Globe in the morning and the Patriot Ledger in the afternoon. And she had her own schedule, a rhythm of the day. She would take walks and with girlfriends, and she'd play penny bridge, and she liked all of those things. Well, when those things started to become more challenging for her, that is when we realized that she would have Grey's Anatomy, the TV show, playing in the background, and she would be doing things that weren't typically her. So we kind of got into the mode where we started to see the things that she enjoyed and that she was choosing for herself. So that's when I realized that she was starting to enjoy some of these large format paintings. And then I thought, ooh, genre paintings. And then I thought, what is it to that? What it was the cadence of the day. So genre paintings through the ages have to do with bringing home baby, or the father coming home from work at the end of the day and the children rush to greet him, or your morning ritual, your morning routine, a steaming cup of coffee, or welcoming the ships back into the harbor and the families would gather to see their father. So the cadence of the day, the empty nest, those kinds of things seemed to really, really resonate with her because she was thinking about those things, and she was in fact in life review. So the combination of those things and her kind of coming into her own light, finally, after, as I said, raising 6 kids, 14 grandkids, I believe, and my father-in-law, I believe that she finally started to enjoy those things for herself. And little by little, I was keying into, and with deep listening and deep observation, my children were certainly helping us with that. We came to realize the things that really resonated with her and that sparked her.
Okay, I am so impressed by that, because the fact that your whole family threw themselves into her shoes, and each one of you figured out something that could help her and combined it together, which is just incredibly loving. A lot of people, because what I'm hearing from you is you all work together as a family unit. Not a lot of people have that support. And so the fact that you are able to combine those resources and then as a result create this content so that they don't have to figure it out, that they just have to watch their loved one and say, okay, they're reacting to this, they're reacting to that. So if somebody is utilizing that book, how would a caregiver who's coming to it out of the blue, would they use that book to figure out, okay, this is what they like, this is what they don't like? What signs would they be looking for in their loved one?
A lot of times it has to do with engagement and seeing if the person is lit up by the book and or whatever you're discussing. Sometimes after page 3 or 4, the person bird walks themselves, or let's say their daughter does, or their husband, and they are off on a tangent, and it's something that's very passionate in their hearts and very specific to them, and that they're just really off to the races on this conversation. And I think, wow, I'm very satisfied, because that's exactly what the books are meant to do, is to give people a vista into the past and into their own spirit. And I think that's something that's lacking in care. So that is something that I think is very evocative for people. They use those images and that language. So that's what art and literature is about, right? It's something that's an echo of the past, and it's something that's preserve that moment of, for me recently, the empty nest. Now my kids are rising seniors in college, so the empty nest was now a little bit of a while ago. It seems post-COVID, everything's sped up. But I really do believe that we all need that affirmation and that confirmation of duty and effort and love and devotion. And when you see that mirrored back to you through other humans and the human condition, and you see that joy reflected in the faces of others, let's say in these beautiful paintings or in this classic verse that everything that I choose are things that people would easily recognize. So it's in the canon of American poetry and literature, and in the British canon, very familiar things. So those kinds of things give people, it hands back the talking stick, so to speak. It gives people the language to express their thoughts and their feelings and their recollections to the best of their ability. And oftentimes it's extremely specific and extremely granular, and it's just amazing. Some people say, my mom, we had a 25-minute conversation and she led the conversation, and then it went into another full hour because she really she's quote unquote having her say, which I think is just, I love to be in those environments, in those situations, because we really do. We just learn so much. And, we learn about people that we thought we knew so well. I didn't think I knew my mother-in-law well at all. I was her daughter-in-law for 30 years. And I only got to know her through, as Marilyn Rakel at Maud's Award says, the prism of dementia, which is how she got to know her mother. I feel like that's how I got to know my mother-in-law, was when that filter was down and we had nothing but time. My kids were, up and on, and she had that, there was none of that social context. It was just two women that had walked the motherhood road and had done a lot of the different things in it. We found that common ground. So that's what I think good literature and good art does for people. It mirrors back to you, the road of life.
Okay, you're really touching my heart this morning, because it's that connection. I know that it took me a while to figure these things out, and it wasn't easy because at the time I was doing the first care, there was nothing out there that was common ground, and so just to see these resources, which is can you tell me more about what resources you have with Nana's books, or
Sure.
or other things you're doing? Yeah.
So for Nana's books specifically, I have 40 books that are everything from, let's say, patriotic songs, veterans types of books. So I have 4 books for veterans, lots of different interfaith books. So books that have to do with Catholicism, Christianity, non-denominational Christianity, Judaica, mantras, all the different, let's say, things that have to do with quiet contemplation and being present, let's say, in your life, let's say spirituals and things that are the soundtrack to our past and our milestones and things that were touch points in our lives. So the 47 books, then I have the digital library as well. Then I have 3 NCCAP accredited courses that are for anybody who wants to have a better sense. They're for lay people. There's no jargon. It's not laden with anything ivory tower. It's very, very basic, and it's meant to support teens, let's say, that are in intergenerational, let's say, college programs that are liaising with, let's say, a group in long-term care, or let's say your daughter who's speaking with her, visiting with the neighbor who is a veteran. So those are the types of things that I have in my collection. I go and speak with people and help them set up their libraries in care communities or in, let's say, an adult day. Those are the kinds of things that I have. But as far as to go further than that, I have a collaborative, which is I just love it, with Luke Gilligan of the Resents Register. So it's not daily, but he's got 52 of them. So people use them daily. A true broadsheet traditional newspaper. So you have that snap of the newsprint in the morning, which people love, that whole ritual and that whole experience. And then Nikki Jardin of Mirador Magazine, which is arts and leisure, and it's just so beautifully rendered. So she's got 14 issues, in addition to which she's got an anthology. So people like all different types of media. They like to consume all types of media, not just television or not just, something that's there. I'm at a loss here because everything since COVID has been removed from doctor's office, from dentist's offices, from ERs, and from care. So we've gotten together to provide this media library called Mindful Libraries to give people and families and organizations the ability to give a multimedia experience, a true library experience with all self-selected texts, high interest texts, bespoke, meaning they're just tailored exactly for people that are living with brain change. And it's all based in science through the Deep Guide out of the UK. Very, very specific to be dementia capable, and all of the texts are adaptive and hyper legible. So that's what we offer. And I'm telling you, it's wildfire. We're just enjoying seeing people enjoy one another through these resources.
Well, going back to your books, what I love is it also activates the imagination. And that's something I think that's also missing from us, especially after COVID, where we're just not connecting with people, is allowing people the freedom to just enjoy something, imagine what it would be like, to imagine what the characters are doing in the photograph, perhaps, reading the narrative text at the base of the page. It's just a wonderful, engaging tool. And more people, as they look at it, I mean, you can't help but not emotionally engage in those photos when you look at them. They are so beautifully done. And you just, when you're looking at it, it's like it triggers something, whether it's a spiritual text, whether it's, just going back to your, the Irish tales that you were talking about for your mother-in-law, whatever it is, it just is a trigger. And again, as you're going on and you're talking to people, you're getting more of that sense from them and connecting even further. And I just really admire that you were able to dive that deep, and that your life experience, I mean, what possibly led you to this particular life experience that you could do this, Larry? I mean, it's just mind blowing.
I'm laughing because it was, one of those bird walk experiences where I bird walked myself into this. There are many different metaphors for it, but it really started right here where I am now on my dining room table. And, it was just something that was, they talk about necessity is the mother of invention. During COVID, it really was a COVID innovation, so to speak, because nothing like this existed. I had gone on Amazon to see if I could get her some books that she would like. And a lot of it was, most of it is all labeled images. So let's say, and the thematic, so it might be holidays, or it might be babies, or it might be on the farm, and it's got, tractor, combine. And, I guess if you grew up on a farm, that would be something that might engage you briefly, but it does not engage the spirit, and it does not engage the soul. So I dug further. I went online and took a course with University College London that had to do with cognitive stimulation therapy by the pioneer of cognitive stimulation therapy, Dr. Fang Long, who is a marvel. She's a wonder. So I loved learning more about cognitive stimulation, and I thought, this is wonderful. But then I thought, in addition to stimulating the mind and to try to recapture the memory and reminiscence, what about nostalgia? What about the spirit and the soul? And, doing something to give people that feeling that they're seen and that they're heard and their faith tradition is represented. Because once people feel that and they have that imagery, let's say the iconography or the florals, or, I go to all over, for example, the New York Botanic Garden. I was at the Orchid Show a few years ago and I took so many pictures. I go every year in the Bronx with my husband, and we'll go out to lunch after, and then we'll ride on back. And I thought, people with dementia that can't get to the New York Botanic Garden and see the Orchid Show, they'd absolutely love these orchids from all over. My favorite one was the orchids of Cuba. I went with my sister probably 10 years ago to that one. And they had like chocolate orchids, they called them. How magnificent. So I thought, you know what, maybe what I can do is capture these. And they were so restful and so peaceful. I thought, I'd like to put these to some mantras so people can self-soothe while they're looking at these images, even if they're just doing a picture walk and they're not necessarily decoding or breaking down the different words. They're just taking that picture walk like I did through the Botanic Garden and seeing the different orchids and feeling that sense of peace and the marvel of nature and just the symmetry and all of that. And so that is some of that inspiration that gave me the idea to do some of those things. But really all it has to do is seeing something that encapsulates something for you and transcending your current space. So if you can't get to the New York Botanic Garden, you can page through this book of mantras. And even if mantras aren't your thing and you're not into meditation, or you can just enjoy these beautiful images with your daughter, let's say, or your son, or your care partner. It's that simple. And it's, as my husband always says, it's low hanging fruit. Like it's not a big lift to bring these books in and sit with someone. And then people can use these independently at any time. So let's say there's lag time and I just want to get dinner on, or I just want to take a quick shower. I want to go through the mail, or I need to run up to the mailbox or get the kids off the bus. You could leave your grandmother or your husband with these books and they can enjoy them at their leisure. They've got that whole kinesthetic, that feel of the turning of the page, and that habit and that ritual that doesn't leave you. And then going further into later stages, and let's say end of life, for people with and without dementia, to have someone, your hearing stays with you, to have someone that cares about you, to have the sound of their voice and they're reading aloud to you poetry and prose and just all the traditional hymns and praise and all the things that you love so much from your particular faith tradition. That, I believe, is giving people solace and dignity and basically their time. So it's a whole bunch of different means with which to engage somebody at any of the states, because we know people talk about stages, but it's really about states, because you could be in a different state in the morning than you are in the evening, and you might want a different experience. You might want someone to read aloud to you, let's say in the evening, because you're done for the day. And then in the morning you may be full of energy and you might want to just read through your rosary or read through something that is a daily devotional that speaks to you. So every day is different, Tracy, as we know, right?
And that leads me perfectly into the next question is how are your readers using this in context of their ordinary day? I mean, what kind of feedback have you gotten from them, or have you?
It varies, but I've gotten feedback early on that kind of kept me going. I know someone that had gone to the ER and was there 14 hours with their mom in a waiting area. The mother at the time's 87, was at that time, 86, 87. And she said, we just went through, they had the digital library on the daughter's Kindle or her tablet. And she just said, we talked and talked and talked. And it was like the time just went. And otherwise we would have been sitting there, in this public space with just a curtain drawn across and with not a blessed thing to do. And so this way we had these conversations. And, the mom told me, who I know very well, and she said, I just felt like we talked about things that we never talked about before. So isn't that lovely? And she'll be 90 on August 12th. So that is an early example. And then, people say that, I got to know someone down the hall at my mom's assisted living place where at her residence that, let's say she was from Brooklyn and my mom was from Brooklyn. They lived down the hall from one another and but once we found out that they had this commonality and they raised their families maybe 14 blocks from one another, they were fast friends. And so it unites people. It builds a bridge. It gives people that visual, that auditory, those cues to ignite that spark of recollection and that personal history and that significance of what they did, and they can speak with authority about something. So that is essentially what people are doing and the kind of feedback I'm getting. So I Nikki Jordan and Luke Gilligan and I, we have these conversations all the time when there's just one of those wins where you get that kind of feedback. So we certainly will text or call one another, or, leave like a voice message and just say, oh, I got to tell you about this. So we are tickled when we see people using our materials to make new friends and to get to know their family members so much better.
I love this so much. I want to circle back. Earlier, you had talked about life in review moments and material citizenship. Now, this is not a common term for most people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So material citizenship is a term coined by Dr. Kellen Lee. She's also in the UK. And what it means is that we have certain things that belong to us, whether it's your curling iron, it's an example that she uses, or in the day, it was your TV guide, or it was, your reading materials, or your comb, or your tea kettle. In Britain, they call it the hob, your hob. Those are things that when you go into long-term care settings, or let's say you move in with your daughter or son, those don't necessarily translate and go with you. And that is something that is unfortunate, in that is something that you should have that autonomy to pick and to choose. And the same thing, more than I think anything else, goes for your reading materials and your choice of what you'd like to consume. So I remember, and I use this anecdote all the time because I think about it all the time. When my mother was in assisted living, she would be in a room watching TV with a bunch of other people, and we'd go to the door frame to pick her up, and she would see us and she'd get so excited and she'd walk over and she'd say loud enough for everyone in the room to hear, well, Lori, not everybody loves Raymond. And we thought, I just thought, oh my God, we got to get her out of here. So we'd go down the hall and I'd start laughing because she didn't like it. It was social and people were kind of sitting there and let's say they were co-attending, but it wasn't an active engagement or anything. So every person has a different idea about engagement and what they like and what they want to, experience. And that wasn't the program of her choosing. So in regard to material citizenship, for her to have her own books and her own magazines and her own newspapers, I'll never forget my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, lived to 96. Had all of her faculties. Believe me, she was as sharp as a tack. She could have sat on the New York State Supreme Court, truly, which is where she lived. She said, when I was, I think, getting settled in Connecticut, moving down from Massachusetts, a quote from the movie and from the book Out of Africa. And she said, people like to have their things about them. And I thought, you know what? I'm completely out of sorts because I don't have my things about me. So imagine how dispiriting and disorienting it is not to have that material citizenship, that you are a patient, you have rights. And even when you're aging in place, if there's something that you enjoyed and that was part of your life and it no longer is, just logistically speaking, because it's too complex or it's no longer serves you, let's swap that out for something that is. So I had a reader in Texas, and her mom was a pastor and she was a preacher and the whole thing. And she was lugging her Bible from room to room to room to room. And she didn't even crack the Bible, but she was lugging it around. So her granddaughter said to me, she loves Nana's books because she sits on the sofa with them and she just goes, to like a Barca lounger. And she would just go into like the deep zero gravity position and be there with the book. And she would have her hymnals and her psalms and her spirituals and things that she liked. So that citizenship and those rights, I'll never stop advocating for patient rights and the right to have the things that you choose and that belong to you and that give you comfort, that are your comfort items, and that, help you in the day to day, because we all have those go-to things that are part of our identity and part of our daily routine.
Oh, that is so wonderful. So we have about 5 minutes left. And so I also want to circle back. You talked about the Mindful Libraries project, and I kind of want to bring that up a little bit. If you could talk a little bit more about it and how people can access it, just so that people know that it's what it's about.
Sure. So Mindful Libraries is a collaborative effort between Mirador Magazine, the Recents Register newspapers, and Nana's Books, and you can get them all together, and you can, it's you design what you want to get as far as for your application, for your setting, let's say. So you can talk to us via our website, www.mindfullibraries.com, and you can get a feel for what we have to offer, click through and get an idea of what is available. And you can reach out to Luke Gilligan there, or you can reach out to either Nikki Jordan or myself, get a better sense of what we offer. We are a nonprofit now, so we've got all kinds of doors that are being flung open to us. We're very, very grateful for that. And we really just want to give people these materials that are designed for them, that are purposeful, that are engaging at any level. They're designed so that you can go back and back and back and enjoy them with the activities. In the back of every one of my books is a conversation guide. It's very, very gently worded in a way that it's not an interrogation. It's a lot of declarative statements, or let's find, or an author. I do an author share every time. So let's say the care partner is not up for giving any of their personal information at that moment, or they're just, they've had a long day at work or whatever. So this kind of gives a little bit of my perspective. And the same thing applies to the Recents Register, the newspapers. In the back, there's an advice column, and I've been the guest advice columnist a couple times, and just activities and games. And Mirador is the same. Mirador's got like a postcard that you can fill out and send, and all kinds of purposeful activities and all kinds of hands-on things. So we're just really, really fortunate in that we have one another in this entrepreneurial walk, but more so that we all have this shared mission to unite generations and bring people back their voices through these resonant cues, and in formats that are meaningful to them and that are accessible to them.
And we just flashed up your card with about the memories coming down meaningfully in the cheeks, and that is very impactful, because when I was connecting and reading with my mom, that was the one way I knew I was getting through, is if she would start to tear up. And it was just, I would know we had that moment of connection when she couldn't speak anymore. And it was just it was so meaningful to both of us, I felt, because if she's connecting, then I was getting something out of it also. And I just love what you guys do when you have, I love, first of all, I love that you guys all got together and created this for everybody. It's just such a wonderful format and people need to know that it's available. And so I just am thankful that you came on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. And I think that really a lot of it is modeling the behavior. Like, it's not a put on. Mm-hmm. When I was teaching first grade, and let's say the kids were journaling to the extent that they could, let's say, but later in the year they could do quite a bit. I would sit there and journal too, because I was modeling the behavior, because I wanted them to know that this is important to me too. This isn't just something that I'm arbitrarily saying. It's 9 a.m. We're all going to write in our journals, and we're going to talk about yesterday, or we have a topic, or this or that. So with Mindful Libraries, again, it is an object lesson in that we are community. We are forging community. We are promoting community, and we are inspiring and lifting one another. And that's what we want to do in not just the senior living space, in home care, and in anywhere that people congregate, senior centers, to find community. So we are modeling the behavior, and it's not a conscious thing. It's something that we just had such a great admiration and professional and personal respect for one another, that we were like, let's let's coordinate. Let's provide this together, and let's see how we can do this and give people that ease. It shouldn't be siloed in any way. Let's work together and make this really great for people.
I can't believe we're out of time.
That was quick.
I've enjoyed this so much. So, Lori, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that very much.
And everyone else, we'll be back on July 15th for the next episode of the Dementia Home Care Show. In the meantime, you can go over to our YouTube channel at USA Global TV and Radio and look for the Dementia Home Care playlist, where you will find all of our past episodes. And I want to thank the wonderful Heather Grant for all her hard work behind the scenes today. And thank you to all of our sponsors for making this possible. See you next time, everybody.
5 Little Known Secrets for Dementia Caregivers with Tracy Cram Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care Show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of the same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me. We'll talk about 5 little known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learn how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in 2nd grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us. So it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take us long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that. These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder, for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions. Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.